I stand on the forest trail, feeling the damp carpet of leaves beneath my feet, with the vibrant hues of late spring stretching as far as the eye can see. Chapter 1 Kale. My footsteps sink into the carpet of leaves covering the forest trail, the vibrant hues of late spring stretching as far as the eye can see. The promise of new life lines the gradual ascent to the crescent stones, pulling me from the rainy gloom and compelling me to embrace the crisp northern air. As the future alpha of the pack, I feel a deep connection to this sacred land. The mountains seem to demand reverence the further even eastern, and I can trek across the mighty terrain. I pause as the hallowed path ends at the small cluster of stones, two elongated limestone slabs, white and pitted like the moon's surface, extend along my sides and curve inward. Beyond the stones, the ground jets into a steep ledge of rock. The revered ground of our prima alpha appears stark against the backdrop of storm gray skies. I savor the rich aroma of moist soil that quickens my blood and makes my hands and feet itch to dig in. The connection to our pack he always strikes me deeply, stirring my wolf and making my soul sing with the weight of future responsibilities. Iman Easton, whom I've always called Omi, walks past me through the stones onto Wayam's rock. Even he, a wise pack healer and elder, looks diminutive in this majestic setting. I regard him formally, trying to separate him from the mentor and closest friend of my father, our current alpha. He gestures for me to stand beside him and tilts his head skyward, a rare display of dominance, as he delivers the ceremonial words with solemn precision. This is our pack's land, reaching beyond our borders of the Simike Range and the Banta Joint Sea. Beyond wolf-made boundaries, we are Sata's most blessed beings. You must always remember our greater connection to each other, to the moon we serve, the goddess Sata we honor, and the earth that provides for us. Your gifts as a born alpha are tied to all of it. And today, we ask that Sata's maidens of fate lay out for us the path of your future reign. He sighs, his shoulders sagging as if bearing a crushing burden. As you know, last night we learned of the attack on the Jewel River Pack and the gruesome murder of Alpha Cows. His tired eyes meet mine, filled with concern for the challenges that lie ahead. Your role in this life will not be easy. Demaria has never been content in its peace. There has always been the sense of something lurking in the machinations of the Vampire King at work. I fear for what you may have ahead of you as you become our leader. I can't think of a better alpha to learn from than my father, I reply, my voice steady despite the weight of my impending responsibilities. Agreed, the elder says with a nod of his head, the wispy ends of his white hair dancing around his neck in the breeze. Omi steps back to the crescent stones, murmuring into the air. Kneeling, he waits, and moving aside from the rise and fall of his chest. I tune into his breathing, sharing the primal pull and release of air that feels both intimate and grounding, a reminder of the pack bonds that tie us all together. The threat of distant rain dissipates, as Omi had forecasted, making way to a tumble of golden clouds lit by the setting sun. We sit cross-legged in the center of the stones, and I clench my hands to keep my nerves at bay. Between us, Omi sits a burner of multicolored glass outfitted in silver etchings of our pack's origin story. I watch his hands, the familiar scars from past wolf fights speckled across his knuckles, as he fills each burner with a mix of blue lotus and other dried herbs. My skin prickles, and I wonder if my father felt similar as he underwent his first alpha rites at this same age, in this same spot, with this same sage. Plumes of smoke spill out from holes on the necks of the burners and catch in the wind. Omi wafts it toward us, and I inhale deeply, closing my eyes to the burn as it rounds down and settles into my chest. Breathe in the spirits of our most glorious prima alpha, Ayawayan. Let him guide you to your destiny and show you the path to becoming a strong and just leader to the silver blood pack. A tug in my chest alerts me to the rising moon. I look up to it as the sweet, euphoric effect of the smoke bleeds through my limbs. My surroundings blur. There's heat swelling my chest as I turn in each direction, orienting to a distorted view from Arena's rock. A blinding, milky white clouds the clear river water below, taming the rush of the currents and settling the wild of the forest. There is common silence, and blinding white. I hear what's coming next before I see it. Feel it stir deep in my marrow. From the east, a colony of bats swoops overhead. Thousands of them died at the river and fill in the trees, blacking out all but the white water and the bright moon. The piercing shrieks and fluttering wings call to me. Mine, they say, marking me, claiming every inch of my existence. At the far edge of the forest, the moon flares with a wolf's howl and blows apart into tiny brilliant fragments, showering me. Yours, it sings, and I think it must be Satyr herself. I kneel, upon my back and neck. Glittering flecks of moon melt into my skin and the bats converge on me, pressing on me and stealing my breath as they consume me. Blood dribbles from my nose. I scream into the emerging night. Scream from the stabbing wounds. Scream as the bats and the light are ripped away from me. The vision slips away. Beyond my reach, I crumble to the soft earth and everything goes black. Wake. Kill. My eyes snap open, absorbing the inky sky and the unnerving lack of sensation. It's like waking in a void after the most filling of dreams. A dream of crippling extremes, wrenching me from bone, deep fear to joyous rapture. Never have I felt so alive and so strict-traught. I rub over my heart where a sudden clawing emptiness grows and am given no time to linger, as Omegaverse throws my arm around his shoulders and hurries us down the trail away from the stones. I have no energy to fight him to let me stay and cling to any trace of what I've seen to this place that feels suddenly smaller and inexplicably fragile. We must get you to your father. He breathes out as we rush over bulging mounds and ankle, twisting dips in the ground. I search the sky, holding my breath in hope. There were bats, I begin, but cut myself off at hearing the sharp spike in his heart rate. The moon amplifies his fear, washed power, a sickly color I've rarely seen on him before. We must hurry, is all he says. And that's when I understand the magnitude of what's occurred. It's all real. What happened at Arima's Rock was more than some drug dream state. It was an actual vision, an Alpha's vision, the rarest of a wolf's divine blessings. My father never had one, nor did his father. The weight of it is too much as it presses on me. In me, churning my gut and dropping like lead into my feet. Omi keeps an urgent pace, his strides long and sure through the moon field toward the shortcut down to the pack house. The further we get from Arima's Rock, the more the emptiness eats away at me. My body shivers, chills making my teeth chatter. Sweat beads at my hairline, then a flash of heat incinerate tests the cold. I sink to the cool ground like a pile of ash and close my eyes, hoping for a glimpse from my vision, anything to make me feel alive again. I wake, wrapped in a blanket, lying beside a small fire in the wolf pit, the small enclosure attached to the back of the pack house where Omi and my father go to seek guidance from Satu. The two males sit on either side of me, watching each other over the modest flames. Did he ingest too much smoke? I hear my father's steady voice. No. Omi shakes his head. No, the ceremony had hardly begun. His ragged voice drops to a whisper. It's real. Saying the vision he had, it was a real Alpha's vision. You should have seen his face. My father leans to press his hand to my forehead. His smile soothes my nerves and softens the hard-cut line of his jaw. How do you feel, son? I lick my dry lips and take stock of my body, noting little more than a raw throat. I'm all right, I scratch out. Can you tell us about the vision? The burning wood pops in the quiet, shooting embers into the air, reminding me of the exploding moon. I check my skin for markings from the bats, but there are none. There's something coming. Something is calling to my blood. What is it? Kale. What is it that's coming? My father asks, using the hushed tone of shared secrets. It's not a tone HES used with me before, and I can sense that the events of the night have shifted something between us. I search for the simplest description. May I state? Hoping for his understanding. It's some missing part of me. My father studies me. His heart-shaped face so much like my own, the same strong nose and jaw, and stormy gray eyes. Does it frighten you? No, I don't know. I look between them. All I feel when I think of it is home and pack. I sit up and drop a hand over my face, clearing away the last vestiges of my vision. Can you tell how soon it will arrive? My father swipes strands of my dark blonde hair from my eyes with tender fingers. Soon, before the full moon. That's only 3 days away. Omi worries. Perhaps we station extra deltas on the borders to keep watch. My father nods and, for the first time in my life, looks to me to consent. With certainty, I say, you can post your gods, but I have a feeling you'll know when it's near. With a final assessment, he caresses my cheek and then taps the slight dimple on my chin. We can't be too careful. With all the attacks happening lately on PAX, you should go and get some rest now. Son, it sounds like you'll be needing your strength. His loving smile doesn't erase the concern crinkling his eyes as he and Omegaverse lock gazes, communicating through their wolf spawn, the nearly telepathic connection shared among the pack. I shed the woolen blanket and stand, rolling my neck and stretching my arms out. And as I pass my father, he says, "Have Coley make you something to eat when you go in. His food always helps." I squeeze his firm shoulder in reassurance. "Yes, Alpha. And Kel, let's keep this between us for now. It'll inform any of our guards and elite forces who need to know. But it'd like not to cause hysteria in the pack, especially before we know what it is we're dealing with." "Yes, Alpha." I bow first to my father, then to Omi, and step outside of the warm pit and trudge toward the front porch. Light shines from the lower level windows of our plantation-style pack house. Seeing the only home I've ever known to uses me in safety and comfort. There's an innate warmth here that's able to chase out even the harshest chill from my bones, providing a sense of normalcy after such an ominous night. Coley, our row, the rank of wolves who typically serve as house managers, holds the door open as I climb the main steps. The lean male shows no hint of his usual lightheartedness. "You're back early?" he says, hesitantly. "What can I get for you tonight, young Alpha? Do you have anything that might help my blood sugar?" The rose-sea green eyes gleam and a subtle smirk emerges. "There's the Coley I know. It just so happens that I made your favorite dessert in honor of your first rites." He shuts the screen door and trails me into the large, open kitchen. I sit on my usual stool at the counter, my mouth watering as he opens a cake tin, revealing dark frosting and sprinkle-covered sides. "You're lucky that your mother and I held your brother off. He acts rabid any time he gets a whiff of me baking." I grin and lean forward, elbows on the counter, and take what feels like my first full breath in days. Rainer doesn't even like chocolate. "Hey, she's a peanut butter guy." Coley rolls his eyes and slices into the moist cake, placing a chunk of it onto one of our glass dessert plates, the ones reserved for special occasions. "Oh, you don't have to tell me." He offers me the first piece, then fixes a plate for himself, half the size of mine. "Thank you for this," I say, already feeling more like myself. He shrugs and takes a bite, grinning as he savors it. "Tonight is a big deal for an Alpha, your first rite of passage. How did it go?" I think that it went better than expected. The only time will tell what it all really means. "Oh," he beams. "How brilliantly vague of you." He taps his fork toward the end of my nose, already speaking like a seasoned Alpha. I grin and relax onto my stool. I've been practicing being more pompous in the hopes that it will drive Rainer crazy. Coley's laugh is like music, bursting my lingering stress like a pinprick to a balloon. "Yes, well, it's the least your brother deserves. He has spent more than 20 years driving everyone else crazy. And to think, I've only known him for 5 of them. It feels like I've endured a lifetime since being hired by your mother." I turn at the sound of my older brother's familiar footsteps coming from the stairway behind me and grin as he says, "Oh, Coley, you should be so lucky as to have me around for a lifetime." He strolls up to the stool beside me and takes a seat, eyeing my cake like an owl hunting a field mouse. Coley cuts him a slice before he can pounce on mine, and I meet my brother's close assessment. His light blue eyes pin me in place as he probes my feelings through our wolf's bond. "You seem at peace." He sighs, then flashes a grin. "Did everything go well, or am I going to have to listen to stories about you humping trees like Dad did when he had his ceremony?" Coley coughs on his cake and pounds his chest, reaching for a glass of water, probably hoping it can round out the image Rainer invoked. "What?" Rainer-esque grin grows, stretching from ear to ear. "You don't know the story of when Alpha got lit during his ceremony and humped half the forest?" Not he coughs, trying to clear his throat. And I kind of wish I still didn't. Rainer elbows me, then rubs a hand over my head, marking me with his scent, claiming, "Protective." Mine was quiet. "That. So, how was it?" I smirk and shrug. "I got high for the first time and I'm down here eating cake." "It was good." Rainer belts out a laugh. "It was good." He repeats and nods, his classic good looks brightening as he says, "You're sleeping in my room tonight, Pop. I want to hear everything. And maybe it will keep me from having another nightmare about Alpha.丨's murder and the nagging feeling that something out there is heading this way." Chapter 2. My tiny fangs prick the bed-warm skin of my wrist. The battling messenger is one of 100 of its kind, bred by vampires for two purposes, carrying private communications between us and feeding us blood. This evening, there are no words forming in my mind. Accompanying the euphoric prick of fang into flesh, this is a simple transfer of fluid stirring up my blood, fortifying it. The rush in my veins like a burst dam. I stir and peel open an eye to find Alicia Blue, priestess of the rivers and seas, peering out my window into the enchanted temperate weather of the priest's island, Mount Yuan-ti. Her white, almost iridescent hair hangs long and plaited down her back. She's one of Sarah's 10 holy priestesses, and they all stand with the same unnerving grace and air of superiority, distantly lording over the weaker creatures of Maria. How could they not, with their eyes and ears everywhere, spies and informants planted within our coven, within wolf packs, and even in the human cities of the Southern Isles? With a deep inhale of fresh air, she says, is power brewing, stirring in the air and building like a storm soon to be unleashed. I don't doubt her ability to sense such things. Each priestess holds divine powers tied to an element of our world that no one, not even I after living with them, can fully guess at. The battling detaches and flutters past her, heading east toward the darkening coast. It's the only window in the room, arched and encased in worn stone like the rest of the castle walls. The priestess had let me this room almost 2 years ago when they first brought me here. A single view pointed toward the mainland of Maria, where beyond the visible peaks of the Sinike range lies my coven on the far coast of the Demarian Sea. I always wondered if this view was meant as a reminder, to keep me focused and ever cast toward a future that seems to be closing in, each day closer to either asphyxiation or freedom. What I do know is that everything they do is precisely calculated. So if my solitary view keeps my eyes on the distant prize, then it is as they've meant it to be. It won't be long now, Prince. The use of my title startles me, an honorific dredged up from under years of repressed memories. A part of me erased, shoved into remote corners inside me and bolted down. To hear it exhumed and reanimated, slipping past her lips as if she had held the key to its livelihood all along, unsteadies me. My breath shudder and hands quake. No, I can't manage any voluntary movement. I'm bound to this bed by the weight of that one word. She turns to me, cornflower blue eyes round and deceptively innocent. It is almost time for you to rise from ashes and claim your throne. Her gaze drifts, focusing beyond me as she says with breathless drama, "The coven's beloved prince, thought I had been murdered by his uncle the king, returns with the magic of the holy priestesses and the might of 1,000 wolves, his reapers coming to collect their due." 1,000 wolves is a gross exaggeration. It's a couple hundred, at best. But the image she renders forces me to sit up and brace myself on my hands. Arms flexed, shoulders squared. My instincts battle between shielding the truth and embracing my emergence after 2 years of hiding. I knew the time was approaching. With the recent attacks on alpha wolves escalating in the island hideout we've used to shelter exiled wolves almost to capacity, they are my ready army. Simmering with rage over how the vampire king conspired and commanded a group of rogue wolves to murder their alphas and cast out those they deemed to recall contentious to hard to control to stay in their pack. Alicia snaps out of her reverie inside, eyes me as she retreats toward my bedroom door. "The Batling gave you extra blood. Do I have a mission tonight?" There was another wolf attack last night. The Jewel River pack. Their alpha was slain like the others and a group of them banished. They most likely sheltered somewhere on communal grounds. They wouldn't have sought refuge from the humans' isles, not with the separation treaties, even with them so close to their land. I want you to find these exiled wolves, assess them, and deliver them to the Silver Blood Pack. The wolves we rescue separate into 2 categories: those who are willing and able to train with us, ready for the day we engage the Vampire King, and those who are better served joining another pack. My thoughts snag on our last task, the Silver Blood Pack, at the western coast right here. I gesture out my window and suppress the image of their young alpha, Kale Remy Rayamel glimpsed from hidden distances while traveling along the borders of their packland. The turbulent grey of his eyes reminding me of the constant cloud cover of my coven. If ever there was a creature whose blood I wanted to taste, it's his. Yes. They are powerful and that Alpha is generous. I want these wolves kept as far from King Frederick as possible, especially since one of them is a sacred Omega. Omega. No wonder my uncle had targeted their pack. The allure of possessing such a blessed wolf would be too great a temptation for someone so ruthlessly corrupt. Peter will escort any wolves willing to join our warriors to the northern beach caves. You will escort the rest, including the Omega, to their new pack. I push up from my bed and stretch, reclaiming my space and recentering my thoughts. Wake Peter and send him to me straight away, I say, rolling my shoulders back and expanding my broad chest with a breath of fresh air. As you wish, Prince Haru. Save my title for when I arrive at the coven to kill the king. Until then, I am the same humble master warder that you continue to train every day. The irony of me excelling at such a role has never been lost on me. A vampire prince possessing the natural inclinations of a warder, a vampire trained in the arts of specialized healing and protection. Warders are of ancient role, cultivated through strict tutelage and demanding a level of commitment few vampires desire to give, especially to a lichen. We are nurtured to be bridges between our kind and theirs, a unifier and builder of trust. We commit to a chosen alpha and bolster their reign, protecting them fully with body and mind. In turn, they provide goods from their land, herbs for tinctures, food and wares from their markets, and allied support should the coven need it. Forged under the instruction of the priestesses, the goddess' earthly vessels, I am torn between worlds. Born to serve as ruler to my coven, yet raised to serve as a guardian to an alpha. The contrast of my duties couldn't be greater, yet both appeal. Both pull at me and command my attention. Both bind me to others, but it's my coven that needs me now. And there's no pack or alpha that could tempt me from what needs to be done. Alicia bows before leaving, always a mischievous curl to her lips. No one has ever called you humble. I grin and relish the blood injected by the battling pulsing through me, making my muscles feel stronger, my feet itch to sprint, my legs to leap into the treetops, and my hands to claw into flesh. My fangs ache to pierce skin and flood my mouth with fresh blood, sucking and savoring the very essence of life from a living source. My gut twists with hunger, a driving need that has never gotten easier to master these past 2 years without a ready supply of those willing to share a vein with me. Within minutes, Peter knocks on the heavy wood of my door and slips in, locking it behind him. His thick brown hair is bed, mussed as a pillow crease across his stubble-deep cheek, softening his attempt to always appear apathetic, making the hard planes of his chest and the cool evergreen of his gaze seem almost approachable. He 4 years older, 7 inches taller, as lethally trained as a male vampire can be. When I turned 12, he was assigned by the coven trainers as my combat partner. For 5 years we hunted rogue vampires, battled enemy wolves at our coven's borders, and honed our skills in weekly stadium bouts the warrior prince and his reaper the coven crowds used to chant. At 17, I trusted him enough to air my suspicions of our king. Only once we arrived here 2 years later, after absconding in the dead of night, did I understand the fuller picture of my king's misdeeds and the priest's deep involvement. For I'm not the only secret being kept. I smile at my closest friend. We have a mission tonight. Excellent. And I see you've already had a battling visit you. Either that or my overwhelming attractiveness is suddenly making you blush, he says with the smallest hint of amusement. Not in a million years. I lift my wrist toward his mouth, grinning as his fangs lengthen. Drink from me, and then we'll plan our best route for another hunt and recovery. My favorite, he says, gleaming at the thought of action as he places gentle fingers to my forearm and presses his mouth to my skin. The plunge of his fangs thunders through me. My lids grow heavy and I can feel the slip of my hazel eyes into the sharper focus and flaring gold of my species, the glow of an active predator. I buzz from the familiar give and take, lighting up every one of my vampire instincts, ready to find these exiled wolves and perhaps poach 1 or 2 of their attackers. With my weapons pack stuffed with clothes between poisons, herbs, tonics, and knives, We travel from the coast of the Bantajoyan Sea inland toward the southern deltas of the Jewel River. We unleash our vampire speed to cross distances it would take other species and animals days to traverse. The journey through the wild is freeing as we navigate mountains that melt into the river plains of Middle Demeria, a brief respite after facing the harsher peaks of the western wilderness. Out here, I am neither prince nor warden nor willing captive. I am a vampire living on impulse and delivering justice against my uncle's relentless tirade of violence. After a full night, the distant scent of a pack forces us to reroute, sticking to communal lands, the raised trails and wooded hills not controlled by any one species. We avoid the Jewel River tributaries, typically flooded with merchant vessels shipping goods across Demeria and wolves securing items for nearby packs and markets. In the first stretches of sunrise, we skirt the borders of the Jewel River packland and slow our pace. Those wolves exiled by the new Alpha.丨most likely needed to find shelter near here, if they weren't already picked off by bears coming out of hibernation and humans illegally hunting us and savory creatures from these volatile lands. I hear their heartbeats long before I see them and track the thumping rhythm toward a small, obscure den. I expect the strongest of the cast-offs to confront us as we approach, knowing they can smell us as we slink between leaves and other vegetation for cover. Instead, a shock of pure white streaks into the night. The sacred Omega, revered for their abilities to reach into pack bonds to soothe tension and calm nerves, just like a living sedative. Peter pulls his good luck stone from his pocket and kisses it before leaping up into the trees, concealed by leaves and branches, and securing a watchful position from above. I advance toward the den in the Omega circles, pawing closer and piercing me with glacial blue-white eyes. Omegaverse are the only lichen pack wolves who can't shift into human form. They don't grow beyond me, height to me, and they are the only wolves with pure white fur. It's strange to see one outside of a picture in a book. This godly vessel, preserved in the state of the first lichen made. I step forth into the moonlight, compelled by some foreign and unnerving connection between us to trust her and offer a palm in greeting. She noses at my extended hand, laps it with her tongue, then leads me into the den where a small pack of wolves in human form greet me with caution stares and the scent of distrust. I quickly examine each of them for obvious signs of injury, glad to not see anything critical. Presenting my wrist, I show the round tattoo of the priest's mark coloring my skin. Him here in peace, sent by the priestess of Mount Eonti. You all are from the Jewel River pack? I ask in a gentle tone, scanning the sullen, lined faces of mostly elders and infirm. We were. One frail, crisp-led male shoots back. I'm a master warder, and my companion and I are to take you to the Silver Blood Pack. Do you know of them? An elder leans forward on his rustic cane as if simply speaking might turn him into a husk. We do. Their Alpha had visited ours. Their pack is in the far west on the mountain coast. I nod. It's good that they know of them. It will lessen the trauma. Is there anyone who either won't be able to make it that far or doesn't wish to go? I look over the expectant faces, regarding me as if immersive and they aren't sure whether to pounce or pray. The Omega rubs against my shin, nosing at my hand until I pet her soft fur from head to tail. And I can feel her fullness, her contentment. Feel a tight-fisted part of me unclench. In truth, it's disconcerting. I've never been around an Omega, few vampires or wolves for that matter, because Omegaverse are rarer than master warders. I have only surface knowledge of what they're capable of. Beyond the bond shared between a vampire warder and their chosen alpha, I've never heard of a wolf affecting my kind. I'm about to address the pack when my ears prick to a distant sound, alerting me to an approaching stranger. Everyone, stay here. I leg forward, pull one of my blades from my weapon's belt, and peer out into the blackened forest, scrutinizing each shadow until I catch a familiar scent of earth and blood, a single spiked heart rate, and a subtle huff in the air. The lichen nears, prowling around the perimeter of the den. Everything around us stills, as if all of Demeria braces for the clash to come. I block the entrance and track the faintest movement to my left. With a tight grip on my blade, I can't hold back the grin of anticipation. Come out, pup. I know you're there. A giant tawny wolf emerges from the brush, large paws slapping the ground. Its lips curl, baring fangs and grumbling out a throaty growl. You have two options. I want as it edges nearer. You can shift now and answer my questions, and I might let you leave here with all of your limbs. Or I will subdue you and for sure shift and torture the information I want out of you. Your choice. The wolf snaps its jaws and braces to lunge. I ready my knife and meet its flinty eyes. Don't do it, wolf. I don't know who taught wolves that they stand a chance against vampires in a fight, but they really did a disservice to their species. The wolf bears down before leaping at me, mouthing for my neck. I pounce with the full extent of my speed and strength, knocking him back with such force that he lands with a whimper and doesn't get up. Peter drops down from a perch above, hitting the wolf to the ground with his claws. He straddles the prone male, and whispers a taunt into the wolf's ear that causes him to fight against Peter's firm hold. I inch in. Do you know what a master warder can do? I see my words hit home as he fights harder to buck Peter off. So you are familiar with our tonic that can force a wolf to shift. I ease back enough so that even the wolves in the den can overhear. It isn't pretty. It attacks your nervous system first, rendering you immobile. Then it spreads to your heart, making it feel as though it's about to burst as your blood pressure rises. Then comes the pain in your head as your mind is ripped from one reality to the other. Next, your body succumbs, cracking bone by bone, as your human side is dragged to the surface against its will. The trauma to the wolf form can take months to heal, and all of that is before the interrogation begins. And as you must be familiar with my intended role in a pack, you are surely aware that a master warder is well versed in interrogations. I myself have overseen. I look up and thought, at least 20. I exaggerate and grin when Peter further embellishes. More like 40, and all of them were tougher than you. I ran my face down to meet the wolf's dark eyes. It growls low, and I dig my fingers into its scruff. Shift. Woof. I'm running out of patience. I grab a dark blue oilcloth from my weapons pack, soaked in RTH extract which holds a potent, stomach-turning odor, and wave it under its nose. It only takes a few seconds. The wolf splits the quiet with a howl, its body quaking, tremors marking the early signs of the shift. Peter stands and shares a smile with me, confident it doesn't suspect my bluff about the tonic. None of them do. The ancient myths and mystique of master warders are just another tool in my toolbox, able to be plucked and applied at will. If wolves knew my secrets, you'd have a difficult time properly defending the Alpha I commit to. The Lycan's human form emerges with a rough groan that smooths into the hefty wail of a man. He stays down on all fours, head hung low, neck dripping with blood. His eyes claw over my body until fixing onto my face. Ask your questions. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. He spits out, voice gravelly from the remnants of his wolf. Who is your alpha? Ellen, of the Jewel River Pack. Elian, in the countryside. I say, committing it to memory. From what I hear, your alpha exiled these wolves from his new pack. So why are you here? He doesn't answer, but his eyes betray him as he glances toward the den. Let me guess. The fool found out that the Omega had hidden herself among those he cast out. The male rises to his feet and hardens his jaw, tracking my knife as I were lit in my hand. I let the moonlight catch on its sharpened edge in warning, and ask, are you a beta guard for your new alpha? Yes. Why did Ellen target the Jewel River Pack? The beta doesn't answer. He pins me with a defiant stare, and I allow him the illusion that he has any power here. I step close to him, humoring him before I dart forward and score his cheek with my blade, dipping in and out of his space so fast he barely registers the assault. He flinches and pushes his hand against the dribbling wound. Why did Ella? It was the pack that the vampire led us to. He said they were strong, but that the alpha was aged and easily overcome. What vampire? He hesitates, and I move faster than he is able to track. His head swivels trying to find me as I strike my knife across his right ribs and speed away from him, a blur of movement that he can't defend himself against. My alpha called him Ren. He rushes out, pressing one hand to his latest wound and throwing the other up to ward off another attack. Ren. I meet Peter's hard glare. There's no vampire in the coven with that name. I examine the beta for telltale signs of deceit, but there aren't any. His head whirls, heart pounds, and he struggles to keep me in view as I flash around him and swipe at his back. How did he kill the Alpha? I want to hear him say it. His hands move to the fresh cut. They fought. My Alpha won. Wrong. 6 wolves. I get in his face, spitting with fury. 6 wolves and a vampire attacked and murdered Alpha kills while his alpha mate was held down and forced to watch. His chest heaves, body shaking with adrenaline. And where's Ren now? I don't know. He confesses in a rush of warmth. I mold myself to his back and grab a fistful of hair, pressing my knife under his jaw. He stiffens with a gasp. I don't know. I swear. I battling flew in before sundown and gave him a message. He said he'd be back and then he took off. And what will be done to you when you return home empty-handed? I ask, my breath coasting over his cheek. He laughs with an honest sort of delirium. Well, track the Omega wherever she goes, and maybe bring you in as an added treat. My Alpha has been disgraced enough in this life. It's time he had the glory he deserves. Yes, his methods reek of honor. I say, drawing a bead of blood from his neck. You tell your Alpha that he can look for his glory soon enough in Salah's great realm. Her reapers are coming for him, and well be with them. He lifts his chin in angry defiance, and I almost laugh. But nothing about this is funny. I take my time examining him, his too lean body, chipped or missing teeth, greasy hair, and savagely scarred hands. This is not a wolf who is well taken care of, seeing as we have no further use of him. I cold cock him and drag him into the den. Everybody out. I call to the wolves, all scurrying past me with fear-drawn expressions, stopping short when they see Peter. I drop the beta against the back wall, pull a length of thin rope from my pack, and secure his hands and ankles. The tablet I pull from my pack and place under his tongue will delay his shift once he wakes and leave his limbs immobile for several hours. I walk out and address each doubtful and worried gaze. Leave anything here that isn't essential. We'll hunt closer to dawn and reassess any needs then. We head out in 5 minutes. Anyone requiring physical assistance, tell us now. I collect the older male's cane, several pairs of eyeglasses, and a handful of ointment creams. Finding a bag in the den, I fill it with any other items I see strewn about that may be of use, then march out to find 13 molds of varying sizes and shades of fur. They stare blankly, silent even, as the Omega breaks rank and comes to stand beside me. Let's get you all to safety. With sharper eyes and a nod toward my partner, I say, those of you interested in training to fight against those who attacked your pack, stick with Peter. I squat down with a slight grin and run my hands at the Omega's back. And somehow, even though I don't understand it, I can feel that I'm heading towards something that's about to change everything. Each step on a path toward the king's death on my own. Chapter 3 Kale. My mother rubs my arms from behind, and I'm not sure if it's to calm my nerves or hers. Our Alpha family and Doa and I have all moved cautiously these past few days, as if speaking too loudly or relaxing as usual might lead to some irreparable fissure in our pack's foundation. We wait with anxious glances toward our borders, primed for a foreign scent on the wind or news of something coming. She leaves me with a peck on my head, then goes to the counter where Coley lays out a selection of food. I pick at my eggs, mashing them under the tines of my fork. My muscles ache to sneak out and track down whatever it is that's out there. Where are you? What are you? I hear my closest friend approaching outside and push back from the table. Try and relax today. Love, you're going to give yourself a stroke. My mom warns, half joking, half truly worried. I will. I lie and hurry out the front door into the bright spring morning. Matt grins at me and wags his eyebrows brown compared to the light blonde of his hair, then slings a toned arm over my shoulder. You want to come with some of us to the pack hall after classes today? You seem like you could use an ale. I smirk. It's barely past sunrise and I already seem like I could use an ale. Matt laughs and moves in close to me as we walk, arms brushing, strides in step. Protective. Is it the full moon that's been bothering you? He asks, expressive eyes assessing my stiff movements. Probably. I divert my gaze to avoid more questions. It's hardly unusual for me to hold things back from him. My role demands that I keep certain truths to myself. I can't believe the news about the Jewel River pack, he says. I heard they had Omega that escaped with the wolves that got thrown out. She probably sensed the danger and ran. I add, Omegaverse are so attuned to emotions I expect that she would have been aware of the deceit. Matt's long nose crunches in thought. Wouldn't she have warned her Alpha? Yes, but she most likely wouldn't have been able to infer their intent until they arrived. From what I heard, the wolves were permitted entrance onto their land. They used some fragrant plant to hide the scents of other wolves along the perimeter. Alpha.丨and his mate were giving a tour of their borders when they were overcome. I picture something similar happening to my mother and father. It hot, fiery anger churns in my gut. That doesn't bother me as much as the cold stab of fear that accompanies it. A helplessness that keeps me up at nights. Matt rubs the back of my neck. Alpha is strong and well protected. He'll be safe. I bet that's what the Jewel River wolves thought too. We cut through the row of pastel-painted cottages nicknamed the Spring Den and greet neighbors eating on their porches and setting out gardening tools. I wonder which ones of these wolves would be cast out of our pack if attacked. Which ones would die defending my father or resisting the new Alpha. I close my eyes and tilt my head back, letting the sun's warmth soak into my skin and brighten my macabre thoughts. I can't think like this. As we near the school grounds next to the lavender field and communal herb garden edging the sprawl of farmland, I jump at a sudden exodus of birds from the treetops. I'm not sure I've ever felt so fraught with nerves and expectation. Everything registering as a potential threat or the arrival of my vision which, hopefully, won't be one and the same. Matt studies me without comment, though his arm presses more fully against mine. In here, it says, you're not alone. We make it to class just they the red calls everyone to take a seat in the ankle-deep grass. Our teacher shows no outward signs of the emerging full moon. There's no thick stubble on his face, no mess about his black hair, and no hitch in his steps or crack in his joints, which for a wolf in his mid-20s is practically unheard of. He looks strong, like a archetype, and it's not hard to see why Rainer had a crush on him for so long. The excitement among my fellow she-wolves between the ages of 15 and 20 who have yet to commit to a specific focus of study is hard to contain after months of being pent up indoors on all but the most temperate days. Matt and I take a seat in the middle of the field, where others crowd us, drawn to the scent and power of an Alpha. I run my hands over the shoulders and necks of those nearest, marking them with the scent of my family. Theta Red distributes supplies for the day's task, and I scoot closer to my cousin Marcus, who's slumped on the ground with his hands pressed over his stomach. His dark brown hair stands at every odd angle and his chestnut eyes are clamped shut. I smirk and knock into his bent knees. Not again. Marcus, are you alright? He groans as Theta Red looks us over like with a so-RIS lot of wolves he has ever seen. Looks like many of you are handling the effects of the upcoming full moon moderately well. He skims over Marcus and a few others clutching various body parts. And some of you are still adjusting. So, today we are going to spend time outdoors in the garden and around the greenhouse. I want to keep you all in the fresh air so you don't go crazy and bite someone's throat. He teases to a mostly unresponsive crowd. I look toward the field in front of the greenhouse where the younger sheep play and socialize among the vast rows of sprouting vegetation and know it's the last place Marcus wants to be. I nudge him again. Let's go get you some ginger. His deep moan ebbs into a whimper. You'd rather you just dig a grave for me while you're over there and roll me into it. I snort and pat his back. At least you're not being dramatic about it. Come everyone. Red orders then sweeps over Marcus's indisposed body. Marcus, if you need to remain lying down for a while, you may. But I think you'll feel better if you get your body up and moving. Let it work itself out. Our tutor turns and leads the others over to the wood fence at the perimeter of the garden. I stand and cast a frown at my cousin. Are you going to be alright? Yeah. Go on. He'll be there in a minute. I catch up with the class congregating near the greenhouse door listening to the outline of our work for the day, though my attention is elsewhere, waiting for an alert from our border patrols or my father. Any confirming sign that I'm not going crazy. My best option to pass time in class seems to be overseeing the sorting of the greenhouse plants and replanting them into the prepared beds from their pots. hoping that the active monotony might help dissolve my jitters. I step into a wall of humidity and grab Theta Red as he passes. Do you have any ginger for Marcus? He thinks H.E.S. dying. I point through one of the glass panes to where H.E.S. still rounded into a fetal position in the grass. He gets this every month. Red says in a tone clearly asking when is he going to learn better. The Theta nods and tugs off his dirt-smeared gloves. I can brew it into a tea for him. For what little good it's done him in the past. In not some vampire water able to use my blood to conjure special remedies. If only. I grin. Though the comment shakes loose a thought too weak to grasp. The tea will be better than nothing. Thank you. No problem. He needs to stop eating every disgusting rodent he comes across in his wolf form before a full moon. Surely. He can control his urges better than that by now. H.E.S. not up. It's Marcus. Most of the vermin he eats now are from bats because the older wolves in Rainer's class think it's funny. Speaking of Rainer, was in the first. Red says while grabbing a ginger root from a shelf. Your brother told me you're starting morning trainings with Zeta Bronze soon. Everyone is excited to get to spar with you. There are already bets on who you're going to take down first. My grin spreads. I just hope others don't hold back in their fights with me. I've heard of that happening in other packs, everyone too afraid to upset or damage their future alpha. Nah, there are plenty of wolves who would enjoy knocking you around. He teases. And when you pass all of the lessons, at the end of the season you'll get to track and spar with Rainer's group. And, all bets aside, he'd love to watch you beat your brother's ass. That guy needs to be brought down a peg or two. H.E.S. been trash, talking to wolves from my class since he started school as a young she. 2 years behind us. I don't doubt it. Theta Red shakes his head, grinning as he paces down the nearest aisle toward the kitchen in the back of the greenhouse. I grab a pair of gloves from the pile near the door then make my way to my assigned spot. Passing varying shades of green and striking bursts of color, the peaches of the trumpet honeysuckle, the yellow of winter hazel, and the bold red tulips. The time passes quickly in a rhythm of indoor-outdoor. Mailing, digging, patting, standing. Class is nearly finished when a flare of alarm fires through my wolf spawn. Delta Bank's distinct call has me rushing out of the greenhouse. It guides me past the garden fencing toward the moon field where I can sense him. Noticing my hasty retreat, Matt abandons his task to join me. And the 10 minutes it takes us to get there in an all-out sprint seems like a lifetime. Banks, her pack's led guard, stands in the center of the field. Shirt off, bearing a wide chest and washboard, ABS as if H.E.S. about to shift. Bulging Banks is the nickname the younger she used to describe him, all 7 feet of hard-cut muscle. H.E.S. surrounded by 4 others in the elite force, the highest ranking wolves in our pack. A mix of guards, scouts, and emissaries, who disperse when noticing my arrival. Delta Banks bows to me with a heightened air of authority. Glad you made it. Your father wanted you to join our task force. He flicks his eyes behind me to Matt. You can go back to classes. This isn't a mission for a beta pup. You're not a pup. Matt shoots back. You are a formally trained beta. Either. Matt fumes. Someday. But not today. Banks shoos him off. What's going on? I ask as my friend sulks away. Our TAU scouts have reported a small pack approaching the southeast border, he says. The pack. Delta Banks nods, seemingly unruffled and ready to confront any scenario. We'll need to track them and keep them from coming in toward pack borders, especially this close to the full moon. Their presence could agitate some of the pack, and with the recent attacks, I'm not sure it's wise to be welcoming strangers right now. I do my best to hide my nerves and ask, anything else? The Delta wags his eyebrows and flashes a truly wolfish grin. It's reported that the pack is traveling with a vampire. My heart nearly stops. A vampire is leading a pack of wolves toward our border. Yes, young Alpha. His scent is non-threatening, but that might change once we approach them. A vampire. I've never met one. But the bats from my Alpha vision intrude on my thoughts with new clarity. Nerves roll high into my stomach. This is what I've been waiting for. Certainty twists in my gut, in my soul, that this day is the last day my life will ever be the same. Chapter 4 Lysander. a mile out from the southeast border of the Silver Blood Pack. The air is crisp and laced with the scent of evergreen. It's different from the priest's enchanted island with balmy weather and pleasant, meandering wildlife. Here, there is a hint of the familiar, of home, from the fresh glacier water to the tall pines. But mostly this wilderness holds a different kind of purity. It seems raw, untouched, preserved as Sada had intended. I suck it into my lungs and hope it clings to me. The land out east by my coven is laden with change, a constant target of nature's most violent seasonal storms, which helps keep it isolated from the rest of the world. Our coast is continually upturned and battered down with rich soil and mineral deposits and a distinct fishiness in the air. The thought that I might see it again soon is almost too much to comprehend. My weary companions stand at attention behind me and sniff at the thick trees. We're not alone. We haven't been 4 miles, and the scents of the wolves hunting us are getting stronger. Closer. I leave my knife sheathed but within reach as a wolf and human from round a mountain bend toward us. The trail HES is flanked on each side by steep boulders. I am sure I sensed guards stationed on top of them looking down. His short brown hair is neatly styled and parted with care, though his calculating brown eyes and fighter's stance tell me HES ready if things get messy. HES shirtless, imposing, ready to shift if necessary, and I maintain a respectful distance and posture. Afternoon. Vampire. In Delta Banks. Lead guard of the Silver Blood Pack. Delta. I greet with an approachable nod. Yet I position myself as a barrier to the wolves behind me. The Delta's eyes narrow when I refuse to offer my name in return. But any questions he has about it quickly die on his lips as the Omega leaves my side for the first time in days and paws forward to stand boldly between us. His eyes go wide and his voice throaty. Preparing for tonight's full moon shift. Is this something we can help you with? These are the discarded members of the Jewel River Pack. I can practically see the questions flipping through his mind. Why are they with a vampire? Why have I brought them here? Who am I? The Omega stirs, nose pointed toward the path leading further into their lands. I ignore the adrenaline snaking through me as I show the priest's marking on my wrist and explain what I know. As you've probably heard by now, Alpha.丨was murdered several nights ago and these wolves were banished by the new Alpha. Helen. I was sent by the priestesses to find them and led them to you in the hopes that Alpha.丨could take them in. The priest. The Delta is wary. Shallow breath steady as his expression transforms into something more akin to awe. I should warn you that Alpha.丨, and presumably King Frederick, are looking for the Omega. I don't know if they'll try and track her this far, but wouldn't surprise me. The Delta nods, a new scent of protectiveness projecting over us. We'll alert the rest of our Delta force right away. They're our best guards. And once the ice melts from the northern passes, we'll have more of them patrolling the borders. We're fairly isolated up here, so if someone tracks this way, we'll know about it. I believe it. I had the pleasure of experiencing your tall, stealthy prowess on my way in. The Delta grins at my response, and movement from the trail behind him catches my eye. The bright sun highlighting the face of the young Alpha. That face, with its dangerous allure and intense gray gaze. My pulse quickens, appreciating the dark blonde hair curling up along the back of his neck, complementing the rich, honey tone of his skin. He looks slightly taller than my 6 feet, toned with broad shoulders and an air of tightly reined power. He is stunning, a beauty so different than a vampire's. His scent twists through me, making my fangs throb, aching to push into his skin and release his taste into my mouth. With thick brows drawn in, he studies me and takes a deep inhale of my scent. I have a strange imagining of us sharing a stream of air, my breaths coasting toward him and becoming his, our scents fusing. For other lichens following round and around him, one and more form, and I still can't manage to force my attention elsewhere. Omega lopes forward and lowers herself at the young Alpha's feet, and the wolves behind me about to exhibit the same overt submission to his power. I don't bow. I lift my chin and affirm my stance. I'd love to see what King Frederick would do if he ever saw a vampire bow to a wolf. And the prince, no less. The young Alpha holds his eyes steady on mine as he breaks the reverent silence. I am young Alpha Remy Ray, and I welcome you to our pack. He watches my tongue absently stroke the tip of my incisor. Then he clears his throat and redirects his gaze. My father knew Alpha Kells well, and we were sorry to hear of his tragic death. We are honored to welcome you here. He looks over each of the wolves and gestures for them to rise on for pause, then returns his attention to me. And you, vampire, he says in a more cautious tone. We welcome you for as long as you wish to stay. We'll travel up the eastern pass today and stay in a small clearing for the night. Then move to the coast tomorrow. We can hunt for food in the woods before the full moon shift. As soon as you're ready, we can head out. The young Alpha bends to a knee to rub his hand over the young gaze of fur, mocking her, and offering his palm for her to do the same. I can't help but wonder if this is mere bloodlust or if this is what it's like to find the Alpha I'm meant to commit to. Either way, not even the priest's magic could force me to leave here without tasting his blood. The wolves stick close together, all fawning over their young Alpha like a Shadow incarnate. They huddle around the Jewel River wolves, bodies packed like a fortress wall, with only me on the outside. I'd forgotten how much I both relish and loathe being around those who have never seen a vampire before. I wonder what I look like to them, with my polished, aristocratic features, fighter's build, rakish brown hair, and thin threads of gold in my eyes marking me as the predator that I am. The incessant stare of the nearest delta grates me. I lengthen my fangs and I him like H.E.S. filled with gravy, or jam, or whatever it is that will find delicious. Hearing his heart rate spike, I tuck my head into my shoulder to stifle a laugh. Too easy. Now piss off. The distance the silver blood pack has kept from me isn't surprising. If a lone wolf were to approach our coven borders, they would be treated far worse than this. The social barrier is breached only by the Omega, but even her attention is now divided between me and the young Alpha. And grudgingly, I get it. I'd rub against him, too, if I could. I smile, picturing Peter's mocking expression if he were to discover my thoughts. With him in mind, I pierce my palm with my fangs until it bleeds and lift it into the air, whistling out the call for a batling. It only takes a moment for one to flap from out of the trees and perch on my hand. I concentrate on my message. We're safe in with the new pack. Send word. I close my eyes, transmitting only those words as the batling sucks at the wound. When it's had its fill, it lifts its beady eyes and waits for my command. Take this to Peter Gerard. The batling asks soft with a small shriek, beating its leathery wings into the darkening sky. I've never seen how you use them before. We don't usually get your king's messengers this far west. Although, we don't usually see many vampires out this way, either. Little does he know. I turn and drink in the sight of him standing 20 yards away watching the batling disappear. It's easy to wonder how many of these wolves must fantasize about the curves of his lips, the brush of windswept hair on his brows, and those smoky eyes. What happens if he can't find Peter, or if something happens to him on the way? Is that a threat? He cocks his head and tracks me. Each step I take toward him, I'm teasing. Young Alpha, batling colonies are not so different from a wolf pack. What one ingests can be communicated to others through a blood link. They work together to locate the target and deliver the message. But if the whole colony were to go down, I lift my brows to match the height and pitch of my tone. Well, then you would have a problem. H.E.S. biting back the makings of a smile. That would be concerning. Then suppose there were evil vampires plotting some sort of coup that all happened to use batlings from associated colonies. Those batlings could then possibly have enough information to simply rebel against your kind and take over Demaria. I rest my hands on my hips. That went dark fast. He releases the full extent of his grin and it snatches the air from my lungs. That's what Alphas do. Prepare for the worst. Isn't that what you have master orders for? He shrugs, playful amusement lighting his face. I wouldn't know. I've never thought about it since there are so few of them. He pauses in thought. Are you a master warder? Is that why you rescued those wolves? I am. So, then you tell me, is that what warders do? Imagine possible crises and then come up with a strategy to combat them. I wouldn't put it like that. How would you put it? He crosses his arms in front of his broad chest, a heated delight on his face. Are you an advisor? In more of a personal knight? Ah, his broad smile widens. And what of an Alpha.丨? Our existing personal knights. In stronger, I say. And my toes that scout beyond our borders. In faster. The young Alpha stares at me long and hard. An eagle's focus that makes my skin too tight. And my deltas. They defend the pack. I defend only you. My whole life is you. I rub my hand over my face and clear my throat. Hypothetically. His grin levels. Of course. He looks in the direction of the larger group. Out of sight now beyond the sprawl of the snow, the hub field we're camping in for the night. I came to tell you that we'll all be shifting soon. So if there was something you needed before that, it's better to ask now. I have everything I need. We'll be walking around making sure none of the elders have any issues since many of them aren't used to being in their wolf forms for this many days in a row. I skim the rugged terrain. The Jewel River wolves are accustomed to flatter, lusher farmland, and navigating any of these unfamiliar winding mountain rails will be difficult. He is quiet, evaluating me before he slowly backs away. That's very considerate. Master order. Help yourself to whatever food you find and anything else that you need. I nod in thanks and watch him go. See you in the morning, young Alpha, with hearing as sensitive as my own. He turns back halfway across the field. Tell me, Mr. In faster and stronger and a better protector. He tilts his head to the side, running me over with a taunting gaze. Do you think you can outsmart an alpha on the hunt under a full moon too? Is that challenge? It won't be one for me. His slash of a smile baits a slow, drawn grin from me. And when you lose? I ask. He raises his eyes to the setting sun and rubs his thumb over the small indent in his chin, a feature I could imagine swiping my tongue across in the heat of passion before tucking under his jaw at Pierce's neck. Ask the fly to the spider, he says. You've got about an hour head start. Vampire. Better make it count. Hunt's on. Young Alpha. Clearly. He's no idea what I'm capable of.